Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That's So Po, and today I'm doing week 26 of my 2022 reads. This week I finished 2 short things and I have a bunch of books to wrap up from a vlog that I posted a few days ago in case you didn't catch that. Timestamps and content warnings are in the description box below. First, I finished A Prefect's Uncle by P.G. Wodehouse. My husband Sush read this out loud to me as a bedtime story. We've been working through all of Wodehouse's back catalog, and this is one of Wodehouse's kind of early 20th century schoolboy stories. It follows the bishop, who is a prefect or head of his house at school, and a lot of things happen when his uncle, who happens to be a couple years younger than him, comes to school, and his uncle is like quite a troublemaker. So the bishop has to really handle a lot of the problems that his uncle causes. So this is very much one of those schoolboy stories that Wodehouse does. This one doesn't have quite as much like ridiculous humor. It's more just watching the bishop as he tries to deal with these issues, and it has a lot of cricket, which is excellent for bedtime stories because this always puts me to sleep. But yeah, it was a good story. I enjoyed it. It had lots of interesting characters and some interesting dynamics and things going on. So I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read One Bed for Christmas by Jackie Lau. This is number 0.5 in her Balwin Village series. I read her Balwin Village series like a year or 2 ago, absolutely loved it. I have a series review for that, so I'll link that below if you're interested. And this is just a prequel novella that was a free ebook as part of signing up for Jackie Lau's newsletter, so I'm happy to have that and read it finally. And this was just an enjoyable, sweet story. So it's basically about 2 longtime friends who met in college, and the hero in this has had a crush on the heroine for that entire 10 years, but she just hasn't seen him that way, and he's never broached the topic because he feels like, you know, he's just not good enough for her. She's now like CEO of her own company, that sort of thing. But over Christmas, she ends up being kind of on her own, and because of a snowstorm loses power in her building, and so she asks if she could spend the holidays with him, and there's of course only one bed, and they end up kind of spending a lot of holiday time together, baking gingerbread house, having a lot of fun, and she starts to realize that, you know, she sees him in slightly a different way, and so they come together like that. It is very sweet. I love all the holidays, I love all the food. There's a little bit of family interaction in this. Jackie Lau does all of that great. I did think that the third act breakup, as is often the case, wasn't fully necessary, and I was slightly uncomfortable with the whole unrequited love for so long in a friendship, but even so, this was just a really enjoyable read, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And then I have 5 books that I wanted to wrap up that I talked about in the vlog I posted a couple of days ago, the Great Minds Think Alike project that I did with my friend Cynthia at Book Whimsy, who I'll link below. But in case you didn't catch that video and you want to see them wrapped up here, I'll go through them briefly. First is The Smell of Other People's Houses by Bonnie Sue Hitchcock. This is a historical fiction sort of patchwork novel that is set in the 1970s in Alaska and follows a bunch of different teenagers, a lot of whom are dealing with some pretty tough stuff at home, lots of content warnings, so I'll link those below. And it just follows each of them, what's going on in their lives as they deal with some of these issues. And it comes together really beautifully at the end. This was very moving. It talked about quite a few different issues that are relevant to these characters' lives. The writing was very, very gorgeous. It did have a little bit of kind of graphic hunting and fishing, and the voices of all the characters kind of sounded the same, but other than that, I thought that this was just such a good novel, so I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. Then I read Mean by Myriam Gurba. This is a memoir about Gurba's experience growing up in kind of US rape culture. Her experiences from child sexual abuse all the way to rape when she's an adult, so lots of content warnings there. Again, they're in the description box below. And really tying in her experiences to rape culture at large, talking about the way that it's a whole system and how that affects so many people on so many different levels. It has really biting humor in this, a lot of social commentary. I loved the writing style so much. I thought this was excellent. Again, a little graphic at times, especially about like bodily functions, but just such great narrative voice and a really, really strong memoir. So I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. Next is Pasty by Nicole Dennis-Benn. This is about a queer Jamaican woman who gets a visa to come on a trip to the US to see her friend, except that she is deciding that she's going to stay and try to live illegally in the US, but find a new life for herself. She's felt very, very confined in Jamaica, especially because she has a 5-year-old daughter who she never really wanted, and she just wants to break free and go live her life as she wants to live it. And so this is all about that process and about her kind of coming to terms with what the gap between the American dream and what she actually has is, as well as her relationship with her daughter after she's left. Really beautifully written, really, really kind of heavy at times, but beautifully so, just talking about all of these issues of immigration and about colorism, about queerness, about motherhood, about depression, lots of excellent social commentary and themes and political commentary, and just beautifully written. I absolutely loved this, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Then I read Witchlings by Caribel and Ortega, and this is a middle grade fantasy that is set in a secondary world where everybody is witches, and we follow Seven, who is 12 years old, and she's a witchling, so hasn't come into her full powers yet. And at 12 years old, all of the witchlings are sorted into different covens, except that she ends up not being sorted into a coven, and instead she's, along with a couple of other girls, put into a group of spares, which is very much her worst nightmare, and they have to do some pretty impossible tasks in order to save their magic and not become powerless. But they have to also learn to be friends with each other because they've got kind of some conflicts between them. So this book has a really amazing type of world building. I loved this kind of witching world that is created. I loved the kind of vibrancy of the style of magic, as well as the culture and the history and everything. It was really great world building. I also thought that the themes in this about friendship were really strong, as well as there's a lot of questioning of the way that things work, a lot of questioning of the system, and I thought that was excellently done. It is a little silly at times and a little fast-paced, which makes sense for a middle grade, but yeah, it was just a really fun ride, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And there was one of the books that I read for the project that I DNF'd, which was Acting on Impulse by Mia Sosa. I got 81% through this book, and then I realized it just wasn't going to quite work for me, even though I had been really enjoying a lot of the humor and the banter and everything in this. But some of the premise of the story just kind of didn't work out for me. So in this story, we have Carter, who is an actor, and we have Tori, who is a personal trainer, and she really doesn't want to be in the public eye. She's had a bad experience with the past relationship with that. She doesn't want to be in the public eye, but Carter is very much pursuing her. They get involved, she becomes his personal trainer, and there's quite a few kind of ethical issues for me there with the working client relationship. That's kind of an issue, and also just an issue in terms of pressure and an issue in terms of kind of consent for being in the public eye, that sort of thing. So yeah, so this didn't quite work for me because of that premise, but I did think that it was very funny, lots of really great banter. It was a little fast-paced as well, which isn't so much my thing, but I think would be excellent for most readers. So didn't work out for me, but I still think that there's a lot of good in this book. Okay, so that is everything that I read in DNF'd, most of which is part of that vlog that I did. If you guys have read any of these, if you have any thoughts, if you want to read these, if you want to tell me what you've been reading this week, anything at all, just leave me a comment down below.